As we heard from Paul Smith from the BGCI, ex situ locations around the world that host species from differing locations hold huge conservation benefits and potential. One of those leading institutions is the Morton Arboretum. Based in Lisle, just outside of Chicago in the US, the champion of trees is their tagline, and the Morton Arboretum's mission is to collect and study trees, shrubs, and other plants from around the world to display them across naturally beautiful landscapes for people to study and enjoy, and to learn how to grow them in ways that enhance our environment. Their goal is to encourage the planting and conservation of trees and other plants for a greener, healthier, and more beautiful world. At the very beginning of the creation of our Trees for Our Future campaign, Morton quickly became an inspiration for us. Their structure, their facilities, the equipment, and the vision for meaningful impact gave us an insight to what is possible for a non-profit conservation organization. In 2016, they embarked upon their very own fundraising campaign, Growing Brilliantly. The Growing Brilliantly campaign aimed to generate $63 million to enable the Arboretum to deepen its scientific and conservation work, expand new tree development, and improve core facilities to meet its strategic vision. The campaign actually generated a staggering $73.9 million. And to give us a broader understanding of the range of projects that Morton are focused upon is Amy Byrne. Amy holds a BSc in Natural Resources and Environmental Sciences from the University of Illinois. Dr. Silvia Alverez-Clare is the Director of the Global Tree Conservation, also joins us to discuss conservation of trees and a little insight into her work in the genera of Quercus, or oaks. Silvia is a Doctor of Ecosystems Ecology from the University of Florida. Kia ora and tanakwe, welcome to you both. And Silvia, you're going to start us off with a little bit more insight into Morton and the things you get up to. So over to you.
Hi, thank you for having us. Yes, the Morton Arboretum is a tree-focused botanic garden in the west suburbs of Chicago in the United States. And our mission is to study trees, shrubs, and other plants from around the world and display them through naturally beautiful landscapes for people to study and enjoy, and also to learn how to grow them in ways that enhance our environment. We have more than 700 acres in our property and 222,000 specimens from 4,650 kinds of plants. And we are coming to our centennial next year. So we have a big new project, which is going to be a beautiful garden with lots of flowers and some fountains where events can take place. We also have some natural woods in our property, and a library and a children's garden, educational programs and exhibits. And where Amy and I work is the Science and Conservation Department. So we have an area called the Center for Tree Science, which is focused on science based on trees. And we have more than 30 scientists working there on topics ranging from phylogeny to ecology to climate change, horticulture, pests and diseases, everything concerning trees. And then we have a very locally focused program called the Chicago Region Tree Initiative. And this program focuses on trying to improve the canopy of the Chicagoland area and surrounding counties. And they do a lot of outreach work, community plantings, work with underrepresented communities to try to plant more trees, because we are in a big city, big metropolitan area here. And some of those inner city neighborhoods almost have no trees. So we work with them to try to plant and care for trees and raise awareness of the importance and benefits of trees. And then we also have the Global Tree Conservation Program, and that's where Amy and I work. And our mission there is to collaborate with partners all over the world to protect and prevent extinction of tree species. And right now, we focus our work in Latin America mostly because one of our focus groups are oaks, the genus Quercus. That is a very big group of trees, mostly from the northern latitudes, so not in the southern hemisphere. There are some in Southeast Asia, a high diversity hotspot there, but also China, and then Mexico is a big biodiversity hotspot. And the American continent, they go down to Colombia, which is like one species there, but they're mostly in the northern hemisphere. And of course, in Europe and Asia, like Northern Asia, they are one of the most important groups of trees there.
They're a much loved species because of that diversity, aren't they? So it's great that there is that focus, because Cook here, our founder, he loved Quercus. We've got heaps of Quercus here. We've got probably 79 different species here, over 900 specimens. And we do cover that whole range. We do cover that whole range quite recently as well. We had Quercus insignis introduced to the collection.
You do?
We do.
That is very impressive. I am impressed.
Yes. So we have one of our avid supporters in the past, by the name, a gentleman by the name of Bob Berry. Bob was very much an enthusiast of Central American oaks, and he did many trips over to that region and collected many seeds. He brought them back for his arboretum, which is only an hour away from us, called Hack Falls. And he curated them there, and they're growing very well. He took some of Cook's seeds as well to propagate them onto his property, and we have essentially received the first seed of Quercus insignis that was grown from a New Zealand-based tree. And so that's grown quite nicely. He's growing still in our little potting shed and making sure that we look after him, or her, obviously. Sorry. And we're really proud to have that. And it's a shame that history and that ability to introduce new species to New Zealand is currently not able to be done. We're working really hard with the government to try and influence them to make sure that we can host those critically endangered species that are from regions where we already represent. And we're trying to convince them that oaks, not being normally a very vastly wind-pollinated seed, that it's probably very controllable. So we're in the process of trying to make sure that we could maybe get involved, because I know that you've been involved with Quercus brandegii and trying to get that exported, and we've had conversations in the past about trying to get that into New Zealand, but it's just a hurdle at the moment. But we're going to be working hard to make sure that we can represent those critically endangered species within our eco zones and eco regions here with the master plan. So that's something that is we really want to get involved with. So it's great that the GCCO, or the Global Consortia for Conservation on Oaks, is getting together. It's a new emphasis, and maybe Amy, you want to talk us through a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for having me here as well. So like Silvia said, in our Global Tree Conservation Program at the Morton Arboretum, we are the lead institution for the Global Conservation Consortium for Oak. So we are working in collaboration with Botanic Gardens Conservation International, BGCI. They launched this suite of global conservation consortia, which are focused on catalyzing groups of institutions and networks to implement comprehensive conservation strategies and preventing extinction of priority threatened plant groups like Quercus. And originally it was the thought of launching these consortia originally focusing on conserving exceptional tree genera, but they have expanded to include other consortia as well. But Quercus is an exceptional tree genus in which their seeds cannot be traditionally seed banked because they can't survive, the low humidity, low temperature conditions of a seed bank. So alternative solutions to conserving these species, cryopreservation, tissue culture, but also exit to living collections is the great alternative of conserving these species long term. And that is one of the main objectives of the GCCO, is implementing exit to conservation strategies within the network. And so since we launched back in December of 2019, originally launching in the US region, because we've had great resources over the years, developed the red list of US oaks, but now recently the red list of oaks 2020 report came out, which is the global threat assessment of all Quercus species, but also the conservation gap analysis of native US oaks, which are great resources in guiding us in focusing and prioritizing our efforts and starting to fill in those conservation gaps of the priority oak species in the US region. So we originally launched there, and we've made a lot of headway in working with a number of partners and experts and institutions. Over 200 people are on the mailing list and have interest in conserving oaks in the US region. But like Silvia said earlier, you know, there are diversity centers for oak around the world. So Mexico and Central America, Southeast Asia and China. We've really tried to expand the GCCO into those diversity centers for oak. So we are working with partners in those regions to ensure we are conserving those priority threatened species through collaborative conservation work. So we've made a lot of headway in those regions and focusing, like I said before, on a number of objectives like exit through conservation, and starting to develop these coordinated living collections of high conservation value, or what we term as the meta collection. Because like I said, that is a great alternative to conserving these species long term, and we want to ensure that we capture you know, the native range of these species populations in living collections, that we do have these genetically diverse collections for, you know, long-term conservation purposes, for education and outreach, reforestation efforts, opportunities for research projects. And so we're really focusing on, you know, exit to conservation, but we really do want to expand and focus on in-situ conservation as well, conserving the native populations, and a number of other objectives we are focusing on as a large global network, and, you know, catalyzing and working with partners around the world, not even within the diversity centers for oak, but also around the world in other regions as well.
And that was really common themes there with the conversation I was having with Paul from the BGCI. And it's all about having a plan now. It's all about getting this stuff. I think as an industry, we're great at telling people the problem. We've got to get on with start getting some solutions together. And I think that's where a lot of your work, Silvia, has been focused on for the Quercus genus. And so talk to us how maybe in that Central Latin America region where your work has taken you, and how you integrate with what your findings are with maybe ex situ collections and all of the different elements that are required for you to make those impacts at that local level.
We currently collaborate with many partners all over the world because, as you may have heard, the State of the World Trees Report was just released, and it's a big wake-up call for action for tree conservation and management. And botanic gardens and arboreta have a huge role to play in preventing the extinction of thousands of tree species. As you may have heard from Paul Smith from Botanic Garden Conservation International, 1 in 3 tree species are currently threatened with extinction, or what is known as at risk. So now that we have the assessments, there is a very real, tangible data set that is telling us that we need to get out there and do everything we can. We need all hands on deck. So at the Morton Arboretum, we have several different areas that we're working on towards conservation. One of them are in situ conservation projects, which are pretty involved, and I lead 2 of those. One focuses on the research and conservation of a threatened oak from montane cloud forests called Quercus insignis, which you have at the East Hill Wood Hill Arboretum, which is, it has the largest acorn of all the oaks. It's a beautiful, majestic tree, but is very threatened. It has a big distribution from southern Mexico to Panama in the Americas, in Mesoamerica, but it's very patchy, and there's a lot of land use change, and this is a very threatened habitat. So there's a lot of the trees that occur in this habitat are actually threatened. So we have partners in Mexico and now in Guatemala and Honduras and Costa Rica, where we are working with them to try to find the populations, collect seed, do some propagation trials, and then pretty much promote the inclusion of this threatened tree in already occurring restoration efforts, or try to work with communities to start restoration or plantings or even species enrichment projects.
So yeah, I mean, that's really,
so
I think that's really important, because one of the things that Paul was saying is, again, it's all about interacting with the local people, because they are engaged, they understand it far more better than somebody flying in, telling them what needs to be done. If you get them at the very beginnings of your project, they're going to take far more care into the propagation of those plants and the planting of those plants. Is that your findings too?
Yes, 100%. So in the case of Costa Rica, I am originally from Costa Rica. So I am definitely working with people I know, and we have a women's group that we are working with. We also have another local NGO that we create targeted plans, management plans for the different ranchers. And then we try to maximize the efficiency of their land. So for example, if there's a part of their land that is not very productive or is close to a water source, we suggest that they use that for reforestation, but we also suggest some measures so that to prevent land erosion, or maybe to improve their cattle ranching efficiency, so that it's an integrative plan to try to support the farmers. And part of it includes planting trees and protecting the environment and reducing the use of pesticides, but always with the community. We strongly believe in including stakeholders in decision making and supporting local knowledge, and making sure that we are supporting their needs and not coming from the outside telling them what to do. And that is a very interesting case in Baja California Sur in Mexico, with our other project with an endangered oak called Quercus brandygii. And this is a very different case, because it is an oak that most of its range is within a biosphere reserve, the biosphere reserve Sierra La Laguna in the Cape region of Baja California Sur. And it has a very small range, this tree, but you would think, well, it's protected, it's saved, it's all good. However, there are ranchers also within the reserve, and they have their cattle, goats, pigs that are roaming free. And so there is no regeneration. There has not been any regeneration. And we think that there is no trees that are younger than 100 years. We always call it that it's like a retirement community for oaks. And so we are working with the ranchers. First, we had to do research, because you have to first figure out even what is going on. So since 2017, we started conducting research on like, what is going on? Why is there no regeneration? Is it that the trees are not producing acorns? Is it that the acorns are not viable? Is it that there is germination problems? Is it that is propagation? And we are pretty sure that the cattle and the livestock are a big issue. And so right now we are trying to work with the farmers so that they will adopt trees and actually plant them within their gardens, but on the fences, so that when the trees are older, the acorns will still fall outside of the fences, and the cattle and pigs can eat the acorns, but the trees will be safe inside. And they were also trying to work with the land owners of the reserve to set some restrictions on grazing and maybe livestock density. So I'm going over there in 3 weeks or so in October to have a community workshop and try to develop an action plan with all the different stakeholders that is going to serve as a roadmap for action.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, where a little bit of knowledge and something as cheap as some fencing to keep stock out could save a species. It's not difficult, and it's just it's amazing that is the case. So how would you, so from your perspective then, how can ex situ collections really make an impact here?
Right, that's a good question. I think that there is definitely a place for ex situ collections. And Amy, maybe you want to explain a little bit more why ex situ collections are so key in the case of oaks being exceptional species.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think with the number of tree species, like Sylvia said, with the State of the World Trees report, and that 1 in 3 trees are threatened with extinction, there are a growing number of threats to tree species, such as climate change, natural disasters, so many things happening that are negatively impacting the wild populations of these important and critical tree species like oak. And so coordinating these living collections and curating these collections of, high conservation value will be ultimately a great resource for long-term conservation. It's serving kind of as a backup to, unfortunately, if collections, go extinct in the wild, we do have these living collections of high conservation value of these priority species that, if there is opportunity to potentially reforest areas in the future, seed for restoration, like living collections is the place to curate that important germplasm. So being able to do it in a coordinated way, like these consortia are trying to do, and coordinating these collections so that we are ensuring that the native range of a species is fully captured and replicated across collections is really important, because the saying goes, we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket, so that this really important germplasm is only at one site. And if unfortunately a storm were to come through and wipe out half of that collection, we don't really want to be in that situation. So understanding who has what of what species, where it is, and how much of that species is growing there is really important to know as well, and being able to work with partners around the world to be able to track that information and that data so that we do know it is being conserved effectively and efficiently, and we can identify those gaps and where we need to conserve this species long term. And collections are important for education and outreach as well. So like you mentioned at Eastwood Hill Arboretum, that you have a large number of oak species in your collections. I mean, that's really important to promote the work of oak conservation, the work that we're doing for the GCCO to your visitors, and explaining, it's really important to have these species conserved in collections and to be able to have the support to grow these species out for the long term. And so being able to promote that to visitors and for they to understand, the importance of it, and then also serve as opportunities for potential research and, developing propagation protocols. There's endless opportunities, I think, to have this species at your disposal, at your garden, and at your arboretum. So many benefits to having them conserved and living.
And so on that, I mean, with one of the elements that the master plan leads to is that when species are collected by their geographical realms, the storytelling there is far more connected. These trees are linked together, and they do link together as an ecosystem service, and they do have that biodiversity. And that's again one of the emphasis of us pulling all those trees together, is to be able to have that, tell those stories, and really sort of connect with people, because not only will people be able to walk the world in one afternoon here at Eastwood Hill, they'll also take away some really important things like, what's the issue with, with water? What's the issue with pests and diseases, of the introduction of pests and diseases? That's ash emerald borer is a great example of that. And then you've got other elements, forest deforestation and the use of land for differing purposes. So as we go around the Arboretum, we've got these what we call link gardens, and those link gardens are where two ecozones merge, and then there's that opportunity to have those discussions. So that's one thing that, from the education perspective, that we're really looking forward to, because at the moment with our species dispersion, it is so erratic here, it's difficult to focus people's minds. But when you say, hey, welcome to Central America, here are the trees from Central America, here are the problems in Central America, people get, oh, okay, well, how can we help? And that's an intrinsic part of what's making us trying to engage with people, and that people from internationally know that we're doing this. That's the other thing, is that we do care, we do have the ability to assist, and that's really important to us also. So one of the other things that you're involved with, Amy, is ArbNet and the connection of Arboreta. So that's obviously going to be a real important vehicle for communicating between Arboreta. We're a level 2 accredited Arboreta here at Eastwood Hill. So maybe just tell us a little bit more about ArbNet and how maybe people can get involved with ArbNet.
Yeah, definitely. So ArbNet is actually celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year, launched back in 2011, so turned 10 this year. And ArbNet is an international network of Arboreta, reaching a range of tree-focused institutions and partners. And ArbNet's focus is, it has, well, many facets to it, but it has an accreditation program. So like you mentioned, Eastwood Hill being level 2 accredited, which is great. The accreditation program is a professional network of Arboreta, and serves as a purpose to provide guidelines and a benchmark for tree-focused institutions to follow, and knowing and understanding what is, an arboretum, and where do you need to be to get to a point where you are, having trees, conserved and they're labeled, and you have education and outreach focusing on trees. So the accreditation program is there to serve as these various levels. There are 4 levels of accreditation which institutions can reach, and it's set based on various criteria, like I said, number of tree species, if you provide education and outreach, if you are conducting tree science and conservation. It's a range of criteria, and it just gives a nice benchmark and a professionalism to, Arboreta around the world. And ArbNet is very interesting and informative network in the sense that we accredit institutions of all types, corporate campuses, universities, cemeteries, NGOs. You wouldn't think of a traditional botanic garden, but they're a part of our network because they have the same mission and purpose of wanting to grow and protect tree species. So ArbNet is wanting to, and has been serving as a community to connect institutions all over the world that have that same passion for trees and tree conservation, and provide resources to help build capacity at institutions to grow and develop their arboreta over time, and opportunities for networking and workshops and conferences as well. So it's a really great resource, and I highly recommend getting accredited. It's a free accreditation program. If you go to the website, arbnet.org, there's a ton of information about its mission, the accreditation program, and various resources that you can take a look at that will, help you learn more about Arboreta and maybe grow your institution as an Arboretum, over time.
Yeah, it's great. And I don't think this would happen without Morton. Am I right in saying that? Morton are a big driver behind this. So kudos to Morton for pushing that forward, because what you're planning to do there is obviously a global importance. And somebody needs to do it, and I'm glad that you guys have got the resources and the wherewithal to be able to really push it forward, because it's needed. Arboreta do need to start standing on our own 2 feet. Although we are botanic gardens, yes, we also have a very unique set of requirements also, which are different to most botanic gardens. And it's great that we've got that central voice as well. So it'd be great to see ArbNet develop into much more of an advocacy and almost peer group that will pressurize governments to really focus on the importance of Arboreta and their international connections for ex situ global tree conservation. So it's great that that's in place. So thank you from me, and obviously from us here. So that's a great push forward. So is there anything else people want to say before we wrap up? Is there anything that people either of you want to get across? Anything else?
I would just like to add that I think that botanic gardens and Arboreta are at a very privileged and key intersection in between academia and research, but also the public and public awareness. And a lot of people connect with the collections and the trees at the Arboreta. And so then that is what will make them believe and love trees and protect trees. And we have that all the time with the students that I work with interns here at the Arboretum. And a lot of them say, I grew up going to the Arboretum. I remember my parents taking me here. And so now I'm studying tree science. And I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that. Like most of the interns we get have this connection to place. And I think that this is such an important thing. And for you two, having even like a connection to the world, you are a pretty far away island for Central America, but how special that somebody that maybe will never have the opportunity to travel to Central America can see the trees that occur there and imagine what it looks like. And I think that that just makes the world a better place.
Absolutely. We often say to people, look, it's just so much more than a nice walk. It's so much to be learning, and we've got to interact. We've got to interpret ourselves and make that easier. We've got a long way to go here with our interpretive education, and that's just generic information, signage, and things like that. But it's so important. It's an opportunity. And as I said, it's way more than just a nice walk. And I think when people really engage with their environment and their space, a lot of huge benefits can come from that. And you see people you hear of green prescriptions these days, of people being prescribed. Get yourselves into a green space. It'll help your mental health. It'll help with your physical health and your overall general health. And again, especially in very urban spaces like you guys would experience, and not so much us here, but the value of being able just to see the color green is huge, and let alone being able to walk and interact and touch. That's the other good thing about trees, is that we don't really mind people touching them. People get a bit scared about a plant or a small flower, but you can get up a tree, and we always try and encourage as many people to get up a tree. You might fall out and break an arm, but it's not the end of the world. And I think that's really important to get across. And like you said, we had this conversation piece came up with Paul about the younger generation, and that I'm genuinely enthused by the amount of impact that we've got. Trees are becoming ever more part of the natural lexicon of people's languages. They understand, they see forest fires, they see the likes of General Sherman under attack right now, and that's resonating over here just as much as I'm sure it is in the States. And we're a part of this issue that we need to address. And if we don't have trees, we've got big problems, and we don't have a diversity of trees, we've got even more problems. So it's such a dynamic space to be in. Okay, ladies, Silvia, Amy, thank you both so much for your time. On behalf of the board here at Eastwood Hill and all of our staff, very much appreciated for your time, and I hope we can interact again soon.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, this was great.